Hello, this is the Cardboard.Capitan, and I'm doing a video on Heist, except it's a different version of Heist. So, who I got? Uh, no blue, but I'm keeping it because I have the loot monger. I have the theater. Very high chance I would draw blue anyway. Then the opponent drops a loot monger. Opponent heists me. That's pretty much how heist mirrors go. Like, whoever gets to heist the getaways, the loot mongers first, wins. So I answer back with my own loot monger. I don't need fear of isolation. Now, looking at these cards, I can see that the opponent's likely not playing any blue. So it's not a full heist deck, it's more of a heist and reanimator deck. So without blue, they don't get access to getaway, they don't get access to weave the nightmare. But they do get access to a bunch of reanimation. Very likely coiling rebirth. One of the strategies is to use coiling rebirth on trumpeting Carnosaur and getting to discover 5 trigger activations. Discover 5 activations. But anyway, the opponent's loot mongering away, ramping up very effectively. Now, when you're loot mongering against a heist deck, you generally want to go for loot mongers and grave expectations so that you can build up your field, build up your mana base through these treasure tokens, and deny your opponent these options. So I'm not getting any islands, which is unfortunate. I get a bitter triumph, I guess, huh? But next turn, the opponent can cast Virtue of Persistence. What am I gonna do? I don't have any enchantment removal. There you go, Virtue of Persistence. And then gets 3 treasure tokens. Now at this point, I might as well scoop it up, right? Because these loot mongers, they're some of them are mine, some of them are his. So even if I deadly cover up to, I guess the word is extirpate, if you know that card, to extirpate the loot mongers, the opponent can still revive mine. I also don't have any islands, no blue mana for the Triumphant Getaway. And I think that card is pivotal in winning. Opponent grabs my loot monger. Also grabs my getaway, and that's it, because they can just keep casting my spells, gain 4 treasure tokens, so yeah, I scoop it up. Now versus a mirror match, I don't like keeping loot mongers in, just because you can, as you can see from the previous match, they can just heist your loot mongers and benefit from those treasure tokens. Also get rid of the getaways, because that's more heist triggers and more opportunities to deal damage through the heisted cards. I do keep Festival of Embers because, you know, one, I was trying it out, and two, they're a reanimator deck. Now, Festival of Embers has this clause where as long as you have it in play, if a card would go into your graveyard, it gets exiled instead. So if the opponent were to heist Festival of Embers and cast it, then they can't discard any cards to reanimate. So I'm playing a mountain in the swamp just so I have an option to cast Nowhere to Run should I need to. But the opponent doesn't drop a loot monger, so I just heist instead. I do get a nice find in Phantasmal Extraction. I see, and there's my blue mana, so that's good. I see a Cruel Claw. I'ma just drop that, considering it gets exiled, so there's no reanimation tricks with it. Yeah, and I'm in a good position. I've got Weave the Nightmare in the case of non-creature spells. I've got Nowhere to Run if the opponent drops a creature that can be answered by it. And yet another Weave the Nightmare. Okay, so nothing too exciting going on in my hand right now. Opponent does Grave Expectation. And drops a Loot Monger. So I want to get rid of that Loot Monger because if you recall from last round, opponent just went crazy with it. I don't think they got anything too crazy from their heist attempts. Playing Weave the Nightmare here may have been a mistake because I think opponent casts Triumphant Getaway. No, I took those out, huh? Um, 3 steps ahead, not a big deal. Okay, so I mistimed it there. So here, opponent casts Grenzo, and what I want to do is, in response to that heist trigger, remove it. If you don't, um, they have an opportunity to cast a heisted spell for free, so that's the ideal way to take it out if you can. All the while, I'm feeding cards into my graveyard for Hearth Elemental. The opponent casts Grave Expectations. And then the opponent casts Coiling Rebirth. Little do people know that you can actually remove cards with Grave Expectations. You always see people use Grave Expectations to heist, but very rarely to exile cards. So, keep that in mind if you play heist. I can't cast Stoic Sphinx, unfortunately, because I don't have enough blue mana. There's some red. And I have a decent amount of instants and sorceries in my graveyard, so I can start heisting some more. Now, considering that Coiling Rebirth can only target cards in the opponent's graveyard, should the opponent heist, oh, should the opponent cast it, it's not a big deal. An opponent has Virtue of Persistence, but no creatures in the graveyard. I have no creatures in my graveyard, so not a big threat to me. Heisting some more. That Carnosaur is looking delicious. And I want to say that if the Carnosaur dies, it'll still be exiled. I don't know the exact wording of Festival of Embers right now. So I'm just going for maximum heistage. Um, Pulling out all those grave expectations. Oh, nice Virtue of Persistence. Pulling out a lot of creatures. So I'm getting a lot of benefit from the Festival of Embers right here. So yeah, now I could get the other blue. I've got to look out for the Bitter Triumph in the opponent's hand because the hexproof of Stoic Sphinx, it only happens if you don't cast a card during a turn. But since casting Stoic Sphinx counts as casting a card, then it won't have hexproof the turn you cast it. So I kick it out with Extraction. I can cast Stoic Sphinx. It won't have hexproof, but during the opponent's turn, it does. So opponent swings in with Menace. A bit risky here, considering that the opponent could remove their own Fear of Isolation. Let's see. Swing for 5. Now, and I don't think the opponent has anything that can remove the Sphinx right now. So I go full risk, copy the Sphinx, draw 2, discard 2, or discard a card. So big payoff. I'm not seeing a need for Pyroclasm. And the opponent's suddenly on a faster clock right now. So all the opponent really can do is just stig with Restless Vents. Probably try to heist Nowhere to Run from my deck. Yeah, in this game. So we're up to a game 3. I don't think I need too many changes in my deck. I could bring in Soul Guide Lantern, but I do have grave expectations to remove cards from the opponent's graveyard, so Soul Guide Lantern, that's more for the green mill decks. Stuff like Say My Name, stuff like that fungus that copies itself. But no, this is chill. Show me what you got. Lootmonger, go away. Also note, Phantasmal Extraction can exile cards from graveyards too. So if you choose not to force the opponent to exile a card from their hand, you can also exile a card from their graveyard. So I'm a Lootmonger, the opponent. Opponent takes a Weave Nightmare. Then I see a Festival of Embers. Now the Lootmonger is just gonna get removed. I mean, you see a Cinder Cone Smite, and a Better Triumph, but I'm getting the Heist, so I think at this point, Carnosaur would be more of a benefit. Okay, opponent's gonna smite. Okay, I pull out the Better Triumph. I don't have anything that can be removed with a smite. And I've got decent setup. Okay, opponent double heists me. Not a big deal because with Festival I can replay Pyroclasm. But they do get 2 cards heisted. Now, opponent doesn't reveal any cards with extraction, so I just take out Brenzo. That's the only thing they would be able to reanimate. I'm not too sure why I didn't just play Pyroclasm there. Maybe I was being greedy and trying to get maximum value from the Virtue before I played it, but I think the better play would be Pyroclasm there and then hold up mana for Weave the Nightmare. Okay, so that's interesting. Festival of Nightmares from the opponent. And so I guess I take out Coiling Rebirth just so the opponent can't recast it. And I take the Cruel Claw. I can't really cast it because I see the Bear Triumph in the opponent's hand. Opponent tries to Phantasmal Extraction me, but I respond with Weave the Nightmare. Give me 0 cards. And then opponent says, yo, I see your Weave the Nightmare, so I'll weave your nightmare. So takes out my Pyroclasm. So at this point, Festival of Embers is not a good card for me. Fortunately, Festival of Embers, it gives you the option of destroying itself. That's what I should do. That's what I should do, but I don't, because I'm a noob. Uh, I dropped Virtue of Persistence. There's still the Loot Monger in the opponent's graveyard, so I can take that. And not sacrificing Festival of Embers is not a big deal now, because I can play Fear of Isolation. But I discarded, so. Let me be greedy now. Get that delicious Carnosaur out. Then I can heist the opponent. Okay. And that Carnosaur totally bait. Let me drop this Cruel Claw real quick. Now, because the opponent has Festival of Embers, the Carnosaur gets exiled instead of put into the opponent's graveyard, so pretty cool. I'm not grave expectationsing right away in case I need to remove some from the opponent's graveyard. Oh. I'm not taking that bait. So I swung in with Cruel Claw. And this was a good draw, because I can discard a card for Cruel Claw and then just draw 2 more cards. So at this point, I don't think there's any reason to have multiple virtues of persistence. Drop another Carnosaur. See what I get with it. Another Grave Expectation, some more heisting. I get another land. Not a big deal. I've got enough lands already. So, opponent has to answer multiple Carnosaurs now. And that's the wrap. So, you know, I think part of the victory came from good play, smart play. Part of the victory came from opponent misplaying Festival of Embers. So, yeah, you gotta look out for that, especially with Heist. With that said, thanks for watching. You can find me on X under the username Cardboard.Capitan, my Mox field, where you can find many decks I've worked on. Cardboard.Capitan. I will see you all next time.